Hi all, welcome to another week of the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Right, let's get into the show. We've got intel. One person won't like this show tonight, I can guarantee you that. Not much intel, but sufficient. A load of op-ed pieces and a couple of deep level exposures to look forward to. In a week, as Q promises, it's all happening soon. Trump goes all Israel and Jewish on us, and the Dems voting to keep illegals voting. Brexit falters again. The war still being debated. Russian collusion, or the lack of it, rolls on, and the world is still spinning on a flat surface, according to some anyway. The RV is still happening tomorrow. It's always tomorrow. And the yellow vest movement is expanding. Jobs are still going missing, but the economy is still doing fine, or so we are told. Welcome to THI, where things happen as we say they do. So what's new? Well, I've now completed From Russia with Love 3, and it's now ready for a show. It won't be this weekend because I'm busy. I've got a Zoom call with people from New Zealand and Australia, and or anyone else from that side of the globe, and it is a globe, which will be Saturday night my time, but sometime Sunday day or Sunday afternoon their time. So I'm looking forward to that. Should be interesting. Maybe next Tuesday. From Russia with Love 3. 4 is in the making. I'm about 60% through that. It will tip you over the edge. It lays it all out. If you haven't listened to From Russia with Love 1 and 2, or I would advise a refresher course with those two to get ready for 3, because some parts you will not understand in part 3 without knowing what was in 1 and 2. Members helping each other this week, that pleases me no end. So thanks to Michelle and Mara for helping Madeline out, and also to Lacey for creating THI state centres, hopefully, which will include every state eventually. And we now also have THI Holland. So thanks for all of that. Right, let's get into the details of the show. We have, if you want to listen live, it's every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's on Spreaker.com/user/895-5881. You can also listen live on the THI website at thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. All the must-listen-to shows, if you are new, listen to them in order. They've all been put in the correct order. And you can also listen to the From Russia with Love in that section, parts 1 and 2. We have the Kim shows and the Man of World Holding Trust separate as well. We have the grounding, centering and shielding documents. We also have how to counteract psychic attacks. It's all on there. And expanding rather well, that website now. You can also find us in the archives on YouTube on the Tommy Williams channel. We have the Facebook page, Truth, Honour and Integrity, and a Facebook social media alternative, which I think will become the primary THI page, because I think Facebook's, particularly THI on Facebook, is limited. The time is limited. So we're also on MeWe.com, Truth, Honour and Integrity. We have the People's Club website link, all about the foundation, or when the funding takes place, and what we're going to do, and what we're hoping to do anyway. That's all at thepeoplesclub.org. There's my Patreon, for those of you who wish to contribute, and thanks to all who have. That's patreon.com/TommyW/memberships, and the email for the show, if you want to send questions or comments, is truth.honor.and.integrity@gmail.com. Right, where are we first? Let's get into some news, and then I'll pick some Q&A out, and then we'll get into the intel and the op-ed pieces, the meat of the show, as we call it. And the first one is the US Department of Labour has issued a long-awaited proposal on Thursday to extend mandatory overtime pay to 1 million more workers. A good move. But it was far fewer than an Obama administration rule that was struck down by a federal judge. Now, currently, salaried workers are automatically entitled to overtime pay if they earn less than $23,660 a year, and that figure was set back in 2004. And the proposal released on Thursday would raise the threshold to $35,308. And the Labour Department in 2016 doubled the salary threshold to about $47,000, extending mandatory overtime pay to about 4 million US workers. But a federal judge in Texas, no surprise, ruled the following year that the ceiling was set so high that it could sweep in some management workers who are supposed to be exempt from overtime pay protections. Now, business groups in 21 Republican-led states had sued to challenge the 2016 rule, and Labour Secretary Alexander Acosta said in a statement that the proposal would bring common sense, consistency and higher wages to working Americans. Someone who won't be earning a wage anytime soon, or maybe he does even in prison, Paul Manafort, who was once served as President Trump's campaign chairman, was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison on Thursday for cheating on taxes and bank fraud. Seems to me that's more important than skinning a child's face, but there you go. A spectacular fall for a once high-flying political consultant who told the judge he was kind of humiliated and shamed at what he'd done. And he had faced up to 24 years in prison under federal sentencing guidelines, but the US District Court Judge T.S. Ellis called the calculation excessive and sentenced him to 47 months. Mr. Ellis said the sentence he imposed was more in line with others who had been convicted on similar crimes. And he went on to say the government cannot sweep away the history of all these previous sentences for similar crimes. And Mr. Manafort's trial last year documented his career as an international lobbyist whose profligate spending habits were part of the evidence showing he cheated the Internal Revenue Service out of $6 million by hiding $16 million in income. Now, later in the week, unfortunately for Mr. Manafort, he was jailed for a further 43 months on charges stemming from the Russian investigation. And it comes a week after the 69-year-old was given a 47-month prison sentence for fraud. And the latest sentencing arises from 2 conspiracy charges which Manafort pled guilty to last year. And he told the federal court that he wanted to apologise again for his actions. But unfortunately for him, he was given a total of 73 months now, of which 30 were to run concurrently with the previous sentence of 47 months. Now, both cases stemmed from an inquiry into alleged Russian election meddling, none of which has been proven, and it's a complete waste of time, in my opinion. Now, it's near, they're talking about the 2020 elections now. This has been going on since since Trump was elected. He may get elected a second time, and they're still going on about Russian meddling. No one mentions about the 61 elections that the CIA interfered with since the Second World War. And yet Russia allegedly meddles in one, and it's all the rest are all forgotten. However, none of Manafort's charges not surprisingly, relates to allegations of collusion with Russia. So he got thrown under the bus. People who use e-cigarettes are more likely to have heart problems, according to the latest rubbish that's written and study this week. And the rate of heart attacks amongst those who vape was 34% higher than among those who don't. Now, once corrections were made for risk factors such as age, gender, body mass index, cholesterol levels, blood pressure and tobacco use, e-cigarette users were 25% more likely to have coronary artery disease and 55% more likely to suffer from depression or anxiety. And yet they told you these were safer. Now, according to Mohinder Vindyal, he stated, until now little has been known about cardiovascular events relative to e-cigarette use. I would suggest they don't know any more now. And these data are a real wake-up call and should prompt more action and awareness about the dangers of e-cigarettes. The report does not, however, identify a cause and effect relationship for the observation. It wouldn't, would it? Studies of people who vape are relatively new because the devices only came onto the US market in the last decade or so. Now, among US teens, the use of vaping devices rose 78% in 2018 alone, compared with the previous year. Now, e-cigarettes do not contain the cancer-causing products that are found in tobacco, according to the study. There is no cancer-causing products in natural tobacco. The carcinogen aspect is the additives that they put in the cigarettes, pure and simple. So that's how you fix it. Remove the additives and just give people who want to smoke natural tobacco. Problem solved. You would think common sense. Except common sense is rare, is it not? German Chancellor Angela Hitler has allegedly stood up to pressure from Washington as she declined a proposal by Vice President Mike Pence to send German Navy ships towards Russia's Crimea. Oh, Mr. Pence and your NATO allies. Citing anonymous sources familiar with the matter, Pence allegedly wanted German ships to sail through the Kerch Strait, which separates Crimea from mainland Russia. France, which was reportedly also encouraged to take part in a military manoeuvre off the Russian shores, refused to do it as well, calling the potential drills an unnecessary provocation. I suspect we'll hear more on that. You know, this is parts of this will be covered in From Russia with Love 4 of who these clowns really are and why they're doing it. Mr. Netanyahu next says Israel is prepared to throw the power of its naval force and urges the world to join in. Oops, there we go. America's going to join in another war to block Iranian oil shipments circumventing imposed US sanctions against Tehran. Iran is trying to bypass the sanctions on it through the covert smuggling of petroleum via the sea, according to Mr. Netanyahu. And as these attempts expand, the Navy will have a more important role in efforts to block these Iranian actions. Netanyahu said at a Navy cadets graduation ceremony in Haifa on Wednesday, but he failed to explain how exactly Israel's relatively small naval force would impose the suggested blockade against the Iranian oil tankers. Yeah, Mr. Netanyahu only spits it out, and then he gets goons in other countries to go and do it for him. Well, enough of that. But Mr. Netanyahu only emphasised that Israeli sailors are well trained and adept at carrying out sea missions against adversaries. Now the question remains is, if Israel does that, what happens if Iran decides, which is within their right, as it is their waters, remember, decide to block the Straits of Hormuz? Then all trade to that zone stops, including to Israel, including to their former gods in Egypt. You know, quite frankly, the world is sick of the violence that comes out of the country known as Israel, but it's not really anything to do with Israel or Israelites either. You know, threats of violence, bullying, human rights issues, all ignored by the UN. And personally, I would like to see Iran block the Straits of Hormuz. It's their right. You know, who cares about sanctions from rogue organisations? Because that's exactly who imposed them. It wasn't the American government. Venezuela power supply remained patchy on Friday after the worst blackout in decades. Remember a show, was it 5 or 6 weeks ago, where I said they would be cutting power off? Well, there you have it. They cut the power and paralysed most of the country, exacerbating hardship for millions of people who are already suffering from hyperinflation and widespread shortages of the basic goods. Now, power went out across the recession-stricken country on Thursday afternoon due to a alleged problem, at Venezuela's main hydroelectric plant. The government said, calling the event an act of sabotage by ideological adversaries. Very cleverly worded that. Now, power returned to some parts of the capital of Caracas during the afternoon, but quickly cut out again, according to witnesses in the local media, and threatening to extend what is already the longest blackout under 20 years of socialist leadership. Neither Socialist Party officials nor state power company Corpolec have provided further updates on the situation. We have more on Mr. Maduro and Venezuela. Let's put that in now, because this is a key move. Members of THI will smile at the words Mr. Maduro says, because it's now becoming a common theme in the alt media. Where are we? Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has praised the armed forces for staying loyal to him and defeating a coup led by the US and the opposition leader Juan Guaido. Now, during a rally, Mr. Maduro also blamed Venezuela's widespread power cuts on cyber attacks by the opposition. Now, his remarks came during a day of protests in the country of pro-government and opposition groups. In the capital, Caracas, some supporters of Mr. Guaido scuffled with the police, and Mr. Maduro has retained the support of the military. That is a big change. I'll explain why shortly. And close allies, including Russia and China, since Mr. Guaido declared himself interim president back on January the 23rd. Now, speaking outside of the Miraflores presidential palace, Mr. Maduro referred to Mr. Guaido as a clown and a puppet of the US. Oh my. and they invited the armed forces to carry out a military coup, and their reply was quite clear: they have defeated the coup plus, as he said. Now, what's happened here, in essence, this is an intel piece, is the generals who were being pressured into taking Mr. Maduro out, essentially the generals were told Mr. Maduro was blocking the RV, of which they're sitting there with all the dinars, zims and dongs and all the other fake currencies, and Maduro was blocking it. This came from the clowns in the US military, who was backing Mr. Guaido. Now the generals have learnt the truth of what's been going on and have decided to turn and support Mr. Maduro. Now they know who is really involved, and it's no coincidence he used the term clown. So I'm hoping, from my perspective, and I did say my, that this leads to generals in other countries around the world who are being promised all kinds of billionaire, millionaire and trillionaire status with fake bits of paper, will also see through the truth like the generals in Venezuela have, and turn on these clowns. There's funds available once these clowns are gone. We all know that now. You all know that now. Maybe even in this country. Probably be the last one. But there's sufficient countries around the world. Argentina is another. Many in Africa. Generals sitting on all kinds of money deals that will never materialise. And they've been lied to left, right and centre by the control system. Well, kudos to the generals in Venezuela. They've heard the truth and they've accepted it and ran with it. Let's hope many other countries and their militaries follow their lead. Next, US traitor. Well, no, not US traitor, American traitor. He's a subsidiary of the US military. Erik Prince, stated as the former head of Blackwater. Yeah, because they've got that many other companies now. Frontier Services, Z, Academy, etc., etc. And the brother of Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, who would never have got that job otherwise, she's completely incompetent, has acknowledged that he was present at a key 2016 Trump Tower meeting. In an interview he gave this week to Al Jazeera, Prince said he was present at an August 3rd, 2016 meeting at Trump Tower to talk about Iran policy. And the New York Times reported last year that Prince organised a 2016 meeting at Trump Tower that included Donald Trump Jr. and Lebanese-American businessman George Nader. Now, during that meeting, Nader reportedly said that the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia wanted to aid Trump in his bid for the White House. Prince previously testified under oath to the House Intelligence Committee in November of 2017, saying at the time he had no official or really unofficial role in the Trump campaign, and his only involvement in helping was attending fundraisers and placing yard signs. Now, the host, Mehdi Hassan, pressed Prince on why his presence at the meeting was apparently not part of his testimony to lawmakers, to which Prince suggested that they got the wrong transcript, which prompted laughter from the audience. Not quite, Mr. Prince. Prince later added that not all of the discussion that day was transcribed, and his latest comments come as he and Nader have both been asked to cooperate in the House Judiciary Committee's expansive probe for possible abuse of power, obstruction of justice and corruption by Trump and his allies. Prince said last year he'd been cooperating with Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team, which is investigating, as we all know, possible collusion with the Russians, which never ever took place. And Mueller's team had reportedly probed several 2017 meetings that occurred in the Seychelles during the period Prince met with a Russian banker there. Now, Prince has acknowledged that he travelled to the Seychelles and that he met with a Russian government official while he was there, but has denied he was acting on behalf of the Trump administration. Mr. Prince, the man who couldn't hack it, being in the US Navy, he was accepted as in the United States Naval Academy and attended it for 3 semesters before leaving, citing he loved the Navy but disliked the Academy. Except other sources say Mr. Prince dropped out of the Naval Academy. Yeah, because he can make more money ripping governments off all around the world with their death and destruction policy. The Senate yesterday rebuked Mr. Trump for his continued defence of Saudi Arabia after the killing of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and voted for the second time to end American military assistance for the kingdom's war in Yemen and to curtail presidential war powers. A good move for me. And the 54 to 46 vote condemning a nearly 4-year conflict in Yemen that has killed thousands of civilians and inflicted a devastating famine, and sets the foundation for what could become Trump's first presidential veto, with the House expected to overwhelmingly pass the measure, possibly as early as this month. Now, the vote may also be the opening salvo in a week where Senate Republicans have the opportunity to hit back the president's aggressive use of executive power. The chamber will vote on a resolution that would overturn Mr. Trump's declaration of a national emergency to secure funding for his border wall, which they did. From Russia with Love 3 will explain Yemen and Saudi Arabia a lot easier. A 4-hour we're off to the UK now. Whilst it may be free at point of source, British people pay a national insurance of 12 or 13% out of their wages to pay for healthcare and benefits, etc. But the waiting times to attend the hospital, both on the day and for treatment or an operation, is beyond a joke over there. Now, the 4-hour A&E target, which is like triage in America, they get 4 hours to look at them, may be dropped under plans announced by the NHS in England. The NHS bosses have unveiled plans for an overhaul of the accident and emergency target, alongside changes for waiting times for cancer, mental health and also planned operations. It said the targets were becoming outdated, but it comes after many of them, those targets, 4 hours to be seen, have been missed for most of the last few years. So in other words, more people are waiting more than 4 hours to be seen. And instead of aiming to see and treat virtually all A&E patients in 4 hours, the sickest patients will be prioritised for quick treatment, which they already are, in most cases anyway. And the NHS in England wants to see patients coming in with heart attacks, I'm sure they do, acute asthma, sepsis and stroke, starting their care within an hour. And the changes will be piloted this year, and if successful could be introduced next year. Now, the plans have been unveiled after the NHS was asked by the Prime Minister to look at the system of targets last year, and the 4-hour target for accident and emergency, which expects 95% of patients to be seen in that time, was introduced back in 2004, has not been met since July of 2015. Last month, only 2 hospital trusts hit the 4-hour 95% patients, and the NHS said the current target seemed to be distorting priorities, and it pointed out that a large number of patients were admitted into hospital just before the 4-hour mark, which has the effect of stopping the clock. Terrible. Britain, another country who spends far too much on military and spying and not enough on people and health. We'll have more about that later. Two more before we get into some Q&A. The boss of Ethiopian Airlines has called for the grounding of all Boeing's 737 MAX 8 aircraft until it's established they are safe to fly. And this is following 2 crashes. Now, many countries have already suspended the plane after one of the airline's jets crashed last Sunday, minutes after takeoff, which killed all 157 people on board, most of them connected to the UN. Well, that's one of the stories I forgot to catch up on. Now, Teowold Gebriam told the BBC that although the exact causes were still unknown, there were similarities to a Lion air crash last October in Indonesia, if memory serves me correct. But officials say that the jet is, US officials say the jet is safe. Yeah. And the FAA said the review had showed no systemic performance issues and there was no basis for grounding the aircraft. Now, regulators, including across the European Union, Hong Kong, Singapore, China and Australia, have all banned 737 MAX aircraft from flying over in or over their airspace. And those authorities must have good reason to ground the aircraft, according to Mr. Teowold, adding that safety is paramount and grounding is the right thing to do. Now, meanwhile, a number of US politicians have called on the FAA to temporarily ground the Boeing model until their safety is confirmed, but the FAA said other civil aviation authorities had not provided data to us that would warrant action. Boeing confirmed that it had been, listen to this closely, Boeing confirmed that it had been developing a flight control software enhancement for the aircraft, but it said it was confident they were safe to fly. The Association of Flight Attendants CWA union said the 737 MAX fleet should be grounded out of an abundance of caution, and the Allied Pilots Association said members who had safety concerns would not be forced to fly. Now, Southwest Airlines and American Airlines, both major operators of the Boeing 737 MAX, were continuing to use the planes until yesterday. The United States bowed down to pressure from pretty much everywhere else and grounded Boeing's 737 MAX jets, citing new satellite data and evidence from the scene of Sunday's crash of an Ethiopian Airlines that killed 157 people. And this is the second time that the US Federal Aviation Administration had halted flights of a Boeing plane in the last 6 years. It had grounded the 787 Dreamliner back in 2013 because of problems with smoking batteries. Final news item. I have a piece on this, but I would suggest it is possible to take all this with a pinch of salt at the moment. But this was put out on Monday, Trump sent Congress on Monday a record $4.75 trillion budget request that proposes an increase in military spending and sharp cuts to domestic programs like education and environmental protection, and also Medicaid and Social Security for the 2020 fiscal year. Now, Mr. Trump's budget, the largest in federal history, it's about 3 to 4 times the normal budget, includes a nearly 5% increase in military spending, oh dear, which is more than the Pentagon had asked for, and an additional $8.6 billion for construction of the border wall with Mexico. And White House officials said the budget would include a total of $1.9 trillion in cuts to mandatory safety net programs like Medicaid. It also proposes new work requirements for working age adults, recipients of supplemental nutrition assistance, federal housing support and Medicaid. A move that the administration said would reduce spending on those programs by $327 billion. From what I gathered, they're proposing that you have to look for work, apply for work, or do something for 20 hours per week to qualify for that assistance. Now, the President is asking for a 5% cut in non-defence discretionary spending compared to 2019 spending caps that were set by Congress. That would amount to almost $100 billion less than Congress actually spent on non-defence discretionary programs in 2019 when it busted those caps. Those cuts would not be across the board but come from programs at federal agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, where Mr. Trump had previously suggested cutting funds. And the budget would also reduce spending on foreign aid, except to one country, international cultural exchange programs and federal employee retirement plans. I'll have more on that later. Let's get into some Q&A. I've managed to work through a lot of them. I had 3 or 4 pages at one point. I think we're down to about 2 now, so we might get through some or all of these. And we'll start with the trust. If the trust is able to get funds through to the US government for humanity purposes, such as natural disasters, homeless programs, environmental catastrophes and such, is the trust able to track monies to the eventual end beneficiaries? Well, currently, no, the trust is unable to get funds through the US government for the people. It's funded the American government, or the US government, as the case may be, but not the people's money. We were blocked for the natural disasters by Mr. Mnuchin et al., Citadel and Anne, and a few other things that we'd proposed, but eventually we will break through. Is the trust able to track monies to the eventual end beneficiaries? Yes. Is there a solar flare event on the horizon? Well, there's always solar flares going on. If you're talking about a catastrophic, we're all going to die event, then no. My intuition tells me QAnon is a Langley operation. These heartless demons in the two-headed serpent party love to put out a juicy big steak in front of American people just out of their reach. All hope and no meat. What is Q? Well, it remains to be seen. There is elements of agency involvement. Has it been a success to counteract the public? No. Has it been a success that woke a lot of people up and got people aware of it? Yes, it has. So if it was a Langley or some other agency operation, it's backfired spectacularly. And that's where I stand with it. It's woken a lot of people up. Now, recently, some of the QAnons on the pieces I've been looking at are getting a bit pissy. They're getting a bit fed up. They've waited over 2 years now since Trump's got in. We've seen a lot of pictures of Trump's pen or Trump's watch or Trump's hand, and look, we're next to Trump. What we haven't seen is a lot of people being arrested and real actionable events. And people only have a very limited patience level, much shorter in America than other countries. And QAnon, if he is a right-hand person or group to Trump, like Mr. Trump himself, is going to have to deliver something, and very, very quickly. Patience is wearing thin. I still think, my own opinion, where THI members are a lot more aware than most, if not all, other groups, because of the depth of information and where it comes from. But those FISA documents and this document and release these files and release those files will not tell a regular THI member anything new. It just won't. And the point is, you release it, and what happens? That's the key. So a FISA document comes out and it implicates person A, B and C. Will A, B and C be arrested on the spot? Yes or no? That's the key. Do they have enforcement to arrest these clowns that are going to be exposed by these alleged documents? They best be quick, because people are getting tired of it. Is there a specific event or time frame when the truth about the Manafort, Holden Trust and Kim and most of what you've taught us will be exposed to the general public? Not really. They can all change on one announcement. If a certain person mentions it in public, it changes everything. But maybe that certain person can't mention it in public currently. A, because of threats to himself, or B, the attention and threats that were put on us. Time will tell. The reincarnation machine has been destroyed or switched off. What happens to the souls of human beings presently dying? Well, since 2014, 2015 time, they return to source, which is something that's been denied for many, many thousands of years. When the conclusion of the BS of Brexit is finally over, I wouldn't count on that. Will all fraudulent and deceitful agreements be nullified when the world understands what has been taking place over 16,500 years? Some of them have, the Trans-Pacific and the Transatlantic, were nothing to do with trade between America and Europe or America and Asia. It's all the dragon groups, trade deals and off-world, both of them. So a lot of them have already been cut. There's obviously a lot to go through, and it will take a lot of time. We need a lot more people, actionable people, in the top positions to push things through and speed it up a bit. Should we in Europe also submit proposals for projects on the People's Club webpage, or is that just for American ones? You can send in proposals, and once the funding comes in, we will look at all of them. Obviously, the People's Club as it stands, the current one, was designed for America. The idea, from my perspective, was that members around the world connected to THI would be involved in the projects in some way, either working directly or indirectly. So there's nothing wrong with people putting in proposals, for argument's sake, Ireland or Holland or Australia. I can then direct the Kim to look at the project, because it has to be documented. You can't just say, I want a farm. You have to price it out, show growth, etc., like you would apply for any business project, and we can go from there. Can you tell us who are the smoky people? Jinns, spirit world people. Some are grey, they're kind of neutral, and there's the rather dark and sinister black ones with the red eyes. They're not so nice, as we found out last week. If I help my mother with passing on by becoming power of attorney and shutting off the breathing stream, will I absorb any negative karma? No. How is Marduk, Genghis Khan and Ashtaroth connected? Listen to From Russia with Love 3. You'll find out. Is Midgard related to the Norse mythological world Asgard, where Odin and Thor came from, since both names end with God? No. Midgard just means Middle Earth. There are others. The Rothschilds take their bank off the stock exchange. This is the beginning of the end of the central banking system. That would be nice. But you still got to replace it with something else. First, phase in, phase out. I've seen the story about the Rothschilds today. I would suggest that appears to be a split in the family. Which could well work in our favour. Suddenly they're all not pulling in the same direction. I wonder why. How can action be furthered on pressuring Trump to ban fluoride in America? It's up to the alt media at the end of the day to get the message out to as many people as possible. You know, it does work, as proven with Monsanto, as proven with the vaccine. And a lot of the pharmaceuticals now are coming under the heat as people are acting on the information. So that's how we change things. It may take time, like Monsanto took time, but at least it lays the foundation for a future development where it becomes impossible for them to sustain it. And like Monsanto, it went down. So instead of, I think fluoride is far more dangerous than 5G. Maybe that should be the focus. You know, I don't know, I'm going to get complaints now. Oh yeah, ignoring 5G. I'm not ignoring it. I'm just not making that the sole focus of attention, because that means it's a program that's being administered by the agencies and a distraction piece. A bit like the RV was previously. That's failed now, and so hardly anyone talks about it apart from the goons that still think it's happening. They'll come up with something else, likes of flat earth. Like I said, does it matter if the earth's flat, round or penis shaped? No. fluoride is far more dangerous. You know, in its natural form, fluoride and aspartame, if it's spilt in its natural form, they have to call the hazmat in, and we're putting that in our mouth. These are the real focuses of attentions to me. The idea that fluoride is to fix your teeth. I think I said that on MeWe this week. It's about as likely as the portal people telling the truth. It's rubbish. So it should get more attention, because it actually makes your teeth worse, for one, which are transmitters, and it also affects the brain. So, but you can counteract that by getting filtered water. Filter it yourself. Get your own filters. Don't rely on theirs. Just because it says these filters eliminate fluoride doesn't mean it does. It's a bit like the company who called it 100% ground beef, except that wasn't the name of the product, that was the name of the company. So they will trick. But you can get natural filters yourself and filter all the water, and that cuts the fluoride out altogether. I wouldn't rely on supermarket non-fluoride or non-that, because you don't know, you don't have a tester, you're just assuming that it's free of this, that and the other. Well, you can take the steps yourself and get your own filters and counteract it that way. I've been watching what is going on and thinking on the amount of trust needed to administer the trust once countries' sovereignty is declared. Well, there's bad people everywhere, there's no guarantee that we, the people, are not going to turn, into greedy people if we got in them positions. And we have to change the mindset of need, not greed. That's the key. People will always fall for the ego and the seducements. You're not going to stop that overnight. But we can expand our circle of how we be and teach others not to go that path. And then we can make a real change over time. Everything at the moment is all about competition and competitiveness and collecting everything and making sure that you've got lots and everyone else can go to hell. No, that's not how it should work. So, that question comes up a lot. Well, there was one earlier along the same lines. How do you know whether the people are going to use it properly, the trust money? Well, you can't guarantee that you give money to people that they're going to not misuse it. It's all about creating an environment where that's considered a no-no. Can Kim guarantee giving the money to me and I'm going to use it correctly? Not really. She has a high probability thinking, yes, I will, but she can't guarantee it. And no more if she gives Tank X amount of money, that money's not going to go into the right hands. There's too many greedy people. That's the problem. And we have to change that mindset. How is it that half of each country's resources will be given to the governments if we cannot trust them? Again, this is another question that's been answered quite a few times now. In fact, I answered this last week. The reason being is the example is the Liberia story. You know, there was 5.9 billion going to Liberia. What was it going for? Infrastructure and development. That's where the governments come in. Because if you give the people 100% of money, not many people are going to decide to pave roads, are they? Or build the infrastructure, or development of this, or development of that. No, they're going to create their own businesses or whatever. But I can guarantee there's very few going to say, that road needs fixing. We need transport here and there. Well, unless it's in their own town or going up and down their roads, most people are not interested in transport until the car breaks down. So that's why 50% will go to the governments, and then the same amount will be given to the people. It's not necessarily 50% of the trust. The funds that are required for each country. If Liberia, for argument's sake, if the American government gets $1 trillion for infrastructure, the people are going to get $1 trillion for their development. That's how we were planning on doing it. So it's not like half the trust is going to the government, half to the people. It's just an equal share. So if America gets $1 trillion, the American people gets $1 trillion for their projects and whatever they're going to do. That's how it works. Well, can we trust governments? No. Can we trust people in general? No. It makes no difference. Governments, in essence, can be seen as a reflection of society. Yes, there is a heightened criminality once you get in that circle of government. But you've got to have that in you, that drive of greed and ego to begin with. There's very few people who really go into government to really want to change the world. Most of them are self-serving bastards, let's be honest. And that comes out of the people. We the people have to change the way we act. I'll wait for time. Do you know why some of the Tartaria star forts in Europe, Asia have been destroyed? Is there specific mineral under them? Not to my knowledge. I would suggest they were destroyed because people were finding out too much. Or maybe there was inscriptions on them that changes his story. Like in Syria, like in Afghanistan, like in Iraq. Where are we next? If the only way for us to attain powers like precog, and telekinesis is by being like Radomir or Buddha and reaching the mental planes, then we lose all ability if we are anything but good. How is it that Draco and the like can have these powers over us, treat us badly and get away with it? Do different rules apply to them? Yes. If you know about Radomir and Buddha and the mental planes, all that information, it's best if you listen again to Humanity Unplugged. There was a whole section on it of the different rules and what applies and what doesn't. I think it was in Humanity Unplugged 1. Rather than me give the answer here, you'll get a better understanding listening to that again. It's either Humanity Unplugged 1 or 2. It goes through the different levels. I studied in college initially to be an architect, and I wonder how many generations in the past built such grand creations such as the great cathedrals, all the main structures seen today, even in all major cities throughout the world. Was there a reset in the past? We all just came about these places and just incorporated them into over time. Yes, not so much a reset. There were certain events that took place, like floods, maybe even a mud flood. Certain weapons can create those environments. As we all know, if they had weapons that create deserts, they have weapons that can liquefy certain land and turn it into mud. I look at the oldest photo I can find in the late 19th century, and many show the big cities throughout the world packed full with structures as today, but hardly any people except one or two men in suits. Just seems very odd and out of place, and I wondered if an erased civilization like Tartaria could explain the advances in construction and commonalities within. The Tartarians, and previously before them the Rus, were building structures that were way beyond what we can build today. You know, you look at the old churches. There's an example in Salt Lake City. You know, a load of people with hand carts and wagons and some horses, a fairly ragtag bunch of mainly farmers, went across America and arrived in Salt Lake. And yet, within 50 years, they'd built all kinds of 4, 5, 6-story structures out of hand carts. Where did all the materials come from? Where did all the manual labour come from? Where did the building construction capabilities come from? It doesn't make sense, does it? What does make sense is Salt Lake was there previously than when Brigham and Young arrived there. That makes more sense. And there's some building structures that have survived for thousands of years, like the Great Wall of China, or what is really the Great Wall of Rus. It was built by Rusia people, not China. And possibly as far back as 7,500 years ago. Well, large parts of it are still up, aren't they? Large parts of the Middle East buildings, pyramids, are still there, aren't they? Possibly 25,000 years old. The Sphinx was older. So they had building techniques that were far in advance of the rubbish that we're putting up now. So clearly, modern man, as in the last few hundred years, did not build it. And they've done all kinds to cover it up. But the Rus and the Tartaria people, who were descendants of the Rus, had gone all around the world building structures which has been allocated to Greeks and Romans, when in reality it may have been neither, and all of it may have been the Tartaria people in the modern day. You know, why was Tartaria on the map 500, 600 years ago, and then not mentioned in hardly any history books? But why would you do that, unless it's covering something up that they don't want out? And the reality is they were way more advanced than we are. See, essentially what's happened over the last 200 years is humanity's gone backwards, not forwards. The only advancements is when they released technology, computers. That's the only change. Everything else has gone backwards. We're using cars that are over 100 years old and out of date. When they built the shuttle, it was out of date by at least 3 decades. Using railways Again, that's to satisfy the same clowns who are holding humanity back. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and all those clowns, they're all involved in it. Bechtel, another one who's invested in the oil and the railways. It's outdated technology. The fact that around 80% or 85% of the world's population live within 50 miles of the ocean is because of outdated technology. They had to live there in the past when we didn't have pipes and infrastructure like we do now. There's no need for 80% of the people to live near a coast anymore. We have the technology to move people inland. We have the technology to transfer or transform deserts into lush landscape, like Mr. Gaddafi was going to do, until the US military bombed it, the water plant. If they can transport oil pipelines over vast distances, they can transport water pipelines for the people to drink. And it's all about holding humanity back while they make vast sums of money on outdated technology. Right. Let me get one more in. No, that'll do. Let's have a music break, and then we're going to go into the intel and some op-ed pieces. Let's see which song should be. Perhaps this is fitting. Bad Company, Bad Company. Hi all and welcome back. I missed the name off earlier on. Another one of our THI helpers who's helping Madeline, Rosetta. I don't like to leave people out. Right. The intel is thinner in some aspects due to the sensitivity of what's going on currently. There's a lot of fun and games playing out. Beware the Ides of March and all that stuff. New systems, which subsequently a new system, so-called quantum system, went up last Saturday and lasted barely an hour. And bye-bye to that one. Now, on Friday, which was a precursor to the new system going up on Saturday, so they can try and steal out of the trust on the real quantum system. GCHQ and NSA, who are the same company, I might add, Bangladesh Command Center, Benghazi Air Force Base, Shanghai Defence Forces and British intelligence services were all hacking illegally into the American banking system last Friday. All of it was stopped after the British intelligence services servers were fried. But this is, whilst this is not good news in some aspects, yet again, it proves that what we said in previous shows, that the more recognised servers of certain companies have now all gone down to an extent where they're using command centres in Bangladesh. Eventually they're going to run out of these backup servers, of which 25 of them were found. That's just a select few. And they're going to run out of them, and then they have no options left. It's just a matter of time. On Saturday, we explained recently on the various banking levels of banking, 3 through 7. 7 being Kim, the only one at 7 at the time anyway. And the general banks are on level 3. and we did a scan of the system, and there was well over 200,000 permitted access to banks on level 3. 200,000 different entities, groups accessing the banking, all banks. Google was one of them, or Go Ogle being the correct term. Let's spy on everyone. Quite a number of American and other countries' universities, these are often a hub for spying, and universities are often a hub for trolls and shills on the internet also, I might add. There were just shy of 300 agencies also who were previously given permitted access to people's banks and bank accounts. They were all blocked. Now this also may explain why, because of the links at the servers, of why Facebook, Go Ogle, Twitter and others had problems on the same day. All the servers are linked. Next item. There was a Black Dragon meeting arranged recently that has brought out old Tricky Dicky Cheney back into the fold. Seems things are obviously not going as well as they planned, it seems, given they've got to bring out Darth Vader again. Now, during the meeting, orders went out to certain Republicans to vote against Trump on certain items, and this is why you are seeing those events in recent votes of backtracking and going against party voting. It's the interference of the dragon groups again, particularly the Black Dragon. This is more a news item, but again it's part of the intel of what we've said previously of what is going on. Clients of Germany's biggest bank who have invested in the exchange traded commodity Xetra Gold, XETRA, are facing problems when they want to obtain physical gold, according to the German analytic website God Mode Trader D. Now, Xetra Gold is a bond on the Deutsche Börse commodities market, and a Deutsche Bank, the Deutsche Bank is the designated sponsor. They would be, wouldn't they? Now, on the website, it says its clients have the right for physical delivery of gold, physically backed, and the issuer uses the proceeds from the issues of that company to purchase the gold. The physical gold is held in custody for the issuer in the Frankfurt vaults of Clearstream Banking AG, a wholly owned subsidiary of Deutsche Börse. In order to facilitate the delivery of the physical gold, the issuer holds a further limited amount of gold on an unallocated weight amount with Umicore AG and Co. third-party entities. It's like you buy the gold, they hold a certain amount, and it's like then they leverage against that amount, sometimes 50-1. However, despite claims that every virtual gram of gold is backed by the same amount of physical gold, clients have been refused the precious metal upon demand. A bit like Germany demanding its gold back from Fort Knox, which is not there. Neither is all the US dollars of the foreign currencies held in America on behalf of all the other countries either. It's all gone. Now, according to Godmode Trader, its reader sought physical delivery of its holdings, and for this he approached as instructed by German Baus documents, his principal bank being the Deutsche Bank, douchebag bank. However, he was told that the service was no longer available for reasons of business policy. To put that in layman's terms is, we haven't got your gold. We've sold it, and we've leveraged too much, and we've got none left. And the article went on to say it's not yet clear whether other banks are still delivering gold through Xetra, and Xetra Gold said its holdings amount to over 85 tons of gold, and at the same time the number of deliveries of physical gold has risen to nearly 900 at a total volume of over 4 tons, and the assets it manages reaches €3.5 billion. Thus, troubles with delivering even small amounts of gold to retail clients by Deutsche Bank may indicate that a global physical gold shortage is only growing. Now, according to the World Gold Council, Germany has the world's second largest gold reserves of 3,381 metric tons. However, there has been a public backlash against the government for keeping most of the country's gold reserves abroad. And this is what's going on. This is why I warn people, do not have anything in banks. Put it in the credit union or the bank of under the mattress. You know, these people have little left, and they're stealing everything to keep going, whether it's raiding Venezuela, whether it's raiding Afghanistan, Iraq, Ukraine, you mention it, or the Philippines or Indonesia, the fun and games that have been going on down there. They're just taking everything. You know, the foreign reserve currency, US dollar reserves of all the countries that hold US dollars that are held in the Federal Reserve are all gone. They'll steal off countries, they'll steal off banks, they'll steal off people, they'll steal off everything to just stay in the game. So there's your physical evidence that they no longer have much left in the way of gold. They may have a lot of gold in comparison, but they're keeping hold of it as an asset base, but they've got nothing left. Final intel piece, which is in part an op-ed. It has to be that way. The use of sex and entrapment is a more often used tool than people think in the authority sections of society. All of them, and I mean all of them, have got dirt on each other. And it's purposely done that way to remove or denigrate person A, B or C, depending on who the authority decides to get rid of. Now, some of it involves what you would class as using prostitutes. All of them age appropriate, meaning they're above 21 or at least 18 for that matter, and all consenting. A bit like, say, Stormy Daniels. Now, most of the corporate world at the top end use those services. Most, if not all. Which is fine by me, except when it's being charged as expenses, which eventually feeds down to us to pay for that via taxes or higher costs for their products. Now, others are involved in the same practice but with same-sex partners, which again is fine until the said victim wants to cover it all up, their involvement in homosexuality. That then becomes a leverage against that person. The way it works, they're always looking for a leverage of either business malpractice or some sexual indiscretion. Then we have another category altogether of sex with children. Again, used at the top end to have leverage over certain individuals. And some of these counters are because certain ones do actually want to have sex with children. It's in their DNA. Others are coerced into going along with the programme, and some are set up and didn't go along with the Sex Act, but have been used in some sort of stage set to create the illusion of doing so. So that's the background of all the top echelons, as they're called, of society and how it operates. Now, certain figures have mud or dirt on Trump. There is no evidence that supports it involves children. I want to make that quite clear. None. But there is enough to sway public opinion, and we know certain people are collecting and garnering that information to get Trump out of the way. We know you're doing it. So tonight we're going to turn the tables. One high-level man has just lost his wife after she found out what he was doing, and she walked away from him. Video evidence was shown to many involved who are investigating it, including his wife. And this same man is also blackmailing his whole department, as he is the go-to man to arrange these type of sex parties. So none of them will speak up. These parties involve young girls, aged around 10 to 13, many of them crying and extremely upset at what is happening and how they are dragged into this arena. The girls are brought into the centre of the room, and the clients select which ones they wish to engage in having sex with. This particular man, the organiser, was caught on video with a 13-year-old girl who was very distressed, and his wife has now witnessed it. We're going to out you. That person is Steven Mnuchin, the head of the Department of the US Treasury. Oops. This is what we are up against. And because so many others have had their sexual encounters recorded, many are frightened of speaking out, in case people find out what they've done. Not all of them are involved with children. Some go to business or consulate meetings and they're given escort girls. Fine by me. Might not please their wife, but that's their problem, not mine. And so they wish to keep that a secret, be it affairs, sex with prostitutes, homosexual encounters, or sex with children. And this is why it's all a closed shop, because they all have dirt on each other. But Mr. Mnuchin, the so-called chosen one, needs to be jailed. Like now. Not only is he dragging terrified young girls into an arena where perverted people interfere with them, that damages them permanently. This is the man who's blocking the people's funds, with others. Told you. You can play with fire, Mr. Mnuchin, one day you'll get burnt. Of course, Mr. Mnuchin, that's the intel for this week. Mr. Mnuchin was also involved in the Liberia case. And I've been asked to explain this. The Liberia case, which took place in last November, as it appears some are deliberately hard of hearing or just plain retarded in one particular case. So here goes. What happened in Liberia? The Manafort Holding Trust was speaking directly to the government, the Prime Minister or President of Liberia, and a deal was struck and arrangements were being made for 5.9 billion eventually to go to Liberia for development and infrastructure for their country. This was the government money. Until certain agency type people decided they would steal the money from the Manafort Holding Trust, not from the Liberian government, no, from the trust, for their own benefit. And this involved the CIA, the UN, and also the IMF, mainly. So for the benefit of the ones who are unable to put two and two together, this one news item means three things. One, the Manafort Holding Trust exists because it was listed as having the funds and someone trying to steal it. Two, the Manafort Holding Trust has funds available. And three, the Manafort Holding Trust can transfer funds to the government, which it did. There was 33 million sent over. As some people appear intent on denying all three of those facts, but it was all covered in the newspaper story. But this didn't please the clowns denying its existence, which is why the attacks have increased ever since. And a hit squad of fake internet warriors with their 27 subscribers, yes we know, who have rogue connections and criminal reports on themselves, chose to ignore all these facts and represent that the Manafort Holding Trust was stealing off the government. These people are just not too bright. Now, one of our representatives in Liberia, who Kim has dealt with in the past and recent times, has been listed as a co-defendant of theft from the Manafort Holding Trust. Now, whether that turns out to be real remains to be seen. Innocent until proven guilty, so we say. But the point is, if correct, and he was stealing from the trust, he will be dealt with by the subsequent courts. But these half-wits think they can twist it into that the Manafort Holding Trust was stealing from the Liberian government. How can it steal its own money? You know, you can't make up these levels of senility, you would think. Well, you would like to think, but clearly not. Well, some can, and kind of waste their entire week focusing on me and Kim and trying to cover up the fact that the Manafort Holding Trust exists. Oops. Dear me. Message to the failed Montauk experiment with the split personalities, the one known as David Ray one day, Bubba the next day, and Barry Biggin the next. Nice try. But like the cabal and your paid agents, you failed. Next piece, we'll have a lot of data. Data being the operative word. And it's going to expose an awful lot of people. Boundless Informant is the name of the company program. and is a big data analysis and data visualization tool used by the NSA. Now what it does, it gives the NSA managers summaries of the NSA's worldwide data collection activities by counting metadata. Now, the existence of this tool was disclosed by documents that were leaked by Edward Snowden, who also worked for the NSA and for the defence contractor Booz Allen Hamilton. Now, those disclosed documents were in direct contradiction to the NSA's assurance to the United States Congress that it does not collect any type of data on millions of Americans, which is a complete and utter lie. You know, this is like the Five Eyes. I think, was it last week or the week before? They'll ask the KGB to spy on Americans, because they're all linked. This illusion that the KGB and they're all against us. No, they're all working together and have been since the 1940s. Langley, KGB, Mossad, Pine Gap. They're all working together. And so Pine Gap, Australia, will, for argument's sake, spy on Americans. And then Pine Gap passes the information onto the NSA in America. So they have then got round the country's laws where you're not allowed to spy on your own citizens, but these are all the same entity. Five Eyes is really Nine Eyes, except it's now 8 because we poked one of their eyes out. So intelligence gathered by the United States government inside the United States, or specifically targeting US citizens, is legally required to be gathered in compliance with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978, FISA, and under the authority of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Now, NSA global data mining projects have existed for decades. Why? Because they're a subsidiary of GCHQ, Britain. But recent programs of intelligence gathering and analysis that include data gathered from inside the United States, such as PRISM, were enabled by changes to US surveillance law introduced under President Bush and renewed by President Obama in December 2012. Boundless Informant was first publicly revealed on June 8, 2013, after classified documents about the program were leaked, and this report contained a top secret heat map produced by the Boundless Informant program, summarizing data records from 504 separate DNR and DNI collection sources, or SIGADs. These are all the servers dotted all over the world, and they're all spying on us. Now, in the map, countries that are under surveillance are assigned a colour from green to red, probably related to the dragon groups, which does not correspond to intensity of surveillance. And the map shows that almost 3 billion data elements from inside the United States were captured by the NSA over a 30-day period. 3 billion data elements in 1 month. And Edward Snowden stated that this tool was collecting more information on Americans located within the United States than on Russians in Russia. They also raised concerns that 2 superiors in the Hawaii regional base of the NSA Threat Operations Center and 2 superiors in the Technology Directorate of the NSA, beginning back in October 2012, and therefore counted as using internal dissent channels in the NSA. Snowden added that co-workers were often astonished to learn about this detail and did not wish to know any more about the program, and that until April 2012 he often asked these colleagues, what do you think the public would do if this was on the front page? You have no idea the depths of spying they're doing on the people. No idea whatsoever. What we don't have to do is help them with it by buying stupid election machines and the other voice recognition nonsense. Collecting your voice, collecting your data. They can use that voice recording to fake phone calls for getting into your bank. Vanny Vines, an NSA spokesman, said that after extensive investigation, including interviews with former NSA supervisors and co-workers, we have not found any evidence to support Mr. Snowden's contention. Well, we have, regardless of Mr. Snowden's evidence. We've seen it all with the servers. That he brought these matters to anyone's attention. The first publication about Boundless Informant was followed by screenshots from this program showing charts with details about the data that the NSA allegedly collected from several European countries between December 10th, 2012 and January 2013. Several European countries, that will be Britain, France and Germany, along with probably Norway. NATO. And these charts were published by a major news outlet from each of these countries. Now, the charts that were revealed, Germany, showing more than 552 million telephone and internet data, alongside 4 smaller charts about Holland, France, Spain and Italy, and they were published by the magazine Der Spiegel back in July of 2013. In October of 2013, in France, a chart showing 70 million telephony metadata was published by the newspaper Le Monde. In Spain, a chart showing 60 million telephony metadata was published by the El Mundo. In Norway, no surprise, a chart showing 33 million telephony metadata was published by the tabloid paper Dagbladet. Italy, 46 million telephony metadata, and Holland, a chart showing 1.8 million telephony metadata was published by the newspaper NRC. Now, initially these media wrote that the Boundless Informant charts showed how much phone calls the NSA intercepted from a particular country. Remember the first one, Germany, 552 million. France, 70, Spain, 60, Norway, 33, Italy, 46 millions. And a first correction of this interpretation is that the program doesn't count the content of phone calls, but only the metadata thereof. And a second correction is about by whom and where these data were collected. In other words, they're trying to cover it up. Now, a week after the publication of the chart from Boundless Informant in Germany, the German intelligence agency BND said that they collected these data from foreign communications related to military operations abroad. A similar statement was made by the Norwegian military intelligence, which is NATO, after a chart about Norway was published also. And on February the 4th, 2014, the Dutch government revealed that the 1.8 million metadata in the chart about the Netherlands were not collected by the NSA. Now, they all cover each other up. This is what they do. It will have been collected by the whole group. But no, it was another country do it, and then they used the term, oh, they were spying on us. No, they were being told so that the whole system collects the metadata. but instead by the Dutch military intelligence, MIVD, also to support military operations, which almost led to the resignation of the Dutch Interior Minister. Now, in October of 2013, NSA Director Keith B. Alexander declared that the accusations in French, Spanish and Italian media about the NSA intercepting millions of phone calls from these countries was completely false. No, it's not. He added that this is not information we collected on European citizens. They were collecting the information because they were being requested from those European citizens. This is how it works. And they went on to say it represents the information that we and our NATO allies, go figure, have collected in defence of our countries. So let's just say that that is correct, that they were collecting these phone calls to defend our respective countries. Why did they collect 552 million in one country, 70 million in another, 60 million in another, 33 in another, 46 in another, and Holland, quite frankly, fiddled the figures and said 1.8 million? Does it make sense? Clearly not. 552 million. And what's the other? 70, 60, 160, 210. Roughly 800 million calls or internet data. To protect the country? Really? They went on. The initial reports in the European media stated that the various charts presented the numbers of phone calls intercepted by the NSA, and a PowerPoint presentation and a frequently asked question document, which was published by The Guardian, say that Boundless Informant is counting and analysing DNI, which is the internet, and DNR, which is the phone metadata records, are passing through the NSA's signals intelligence system, and therefore are not showing how much content of internet and telephone communications is being intercepted, sorry. No, it's all being intercepted. Terrorists don't make 800 million calls in a month, or 800 million websites or blogs. Data analysed by Boundless Informant includes electronic surveillance program records and telephone call metadata records that are stored in an NSA data archive called GM-Place. It does not include FISA data, so that's even more, according to the memo. PRISM, a government code name for a collection effort known officially as US-984XN, which was revealed at the same time as Boundless Informant as one source of the DNR data, which is phone records. And according to the published slides, Boundless Informant leverages free and open source software. I will say that again. Boundless Informant leverages free and open source software, and therefore is available to all NSA developers. And the corporate services hosted was all in the cloud. The tool uses HDFS, MapReduce, and Accumulo, formerly Cloudbase, for data processing, collecting metadata using open source. So for all those who are investigating or investing in Bitcoin, that is an NSA invention designed to collect metadata into a program run by the NSA called Boundless Informant. Blockchain metadata mining operation designed to spy more effectively for corporate assassination purposes. So all those who are pushing Bitcoin or crypto as an alternative to the Fed are full of it. You're talking out of your ass. The NSA created cryptos. That's what it's telling you. Metadata blockchain. So we all have these cryptos and blockchain, and instead of having 5 eyes or 9 eyes, they've got millions of eyes, because the metadata is delivering it for them. So you all become walking servers, which is why they want a cashless society, and why they want everyone on crypto, and why they want everyone on bitcoins and blockchain. It's all metadata spying. The NSA data systems have always been run by the Dragon families, the Fed families, since its inception. Why do you think they call it the 5 eyes? Well, actually it's 9 eyes. And they're trying to create it more like thousands, if not billions of eyes. Now, the NSA is a subsidiary of GCHQ, the CIA, and you can add in the KGB. Yes, them, you know, those Russians that collude with everyone. CIA has been working with them since the 1940s. MI5, MI6, Debka, Mossad, Pine Gap, and a few others all made up the original 5 eyes. The same group as the 5-star trust people, a bit like the black programs, Blackwater, Black Trust, all them, where it's referenced black, the colour, it's reference to the Dragon group that it represents, which morphed into 9 eyes and has now morphed into millions of eyes, because all these metadata blockchains are spying on everyone now. So the original 5 eyes, who spied on each other's countries, not to gain superiority over the other countries as we're told. No, the Russians are spying on our military hardware. No. Bullshit, all of it. All of that is the illusion, you see. CIA, KGB, Mossad, MI5, MI6 all work together and have done since World War II. And they all spy on each other's peoples to get around the country spying and prying laws. Then they transfer the data over to the relevant country. And so America spies on Russians to give data to the KGB. KGB spies on Americans to give data to the NSA or Langley. And this gets around the non-spying on citizen rules within their own country. There's very little money spent by all these countries on real spying as it's portrayed in the movies. All of these spying groups is spying on we the people, not countries. They're finding out who are the threats to the system. That's why you've got groups like Google, Facebook. Fill in this survey. What's your favourite this? What's your favourite that? They're profiling you, and we're going along with it. What's your employment? What's this? What's that? Some of it's for advertisement basis. Other is data mining who and what you are. And it all goes into the system. And then they can target you. This person likes this. We can give them that, and then we can use it against them. And the whole thing is based in fear. Boundless Informant, I'm going to repeat this again, leverages free and open source software and therefore is available to all NSA developers. Which alt media personality has been going around advocating open source? Yes, our not so alt media friendly CIA and NATO agent Robert David Steele. I kept warning you about him. Like the clown we exposed last week, it's all too easy to promote stuff based on headlines because they know not too many will dig deeper into it. Open source, oh yeah, that sounds like it's going to be a good idea. No, it's NSA spying, like the crypto, like the blockchain, metadata, collecting information on we the people, all of us. So if you had any doubts about Robert David Steele and his attentions within the community, there's your answer. Hi all and welcome back to the final part of tonight's show. And I'm going to have to miss a few bits out. A few little smaller pieces. Something that came up this week. The co-creator and star of Fleabag, something to do with a programme in the UK, and not Theresa May or Nancy Pelosi. But she said she was worried about being labelled a bad feminist when writing up this particular TV comedy, and said there were many potholes in the road for people with feminist values, and the dramatist who's also behind the hit series Killing Eve said audiences were exhausted by seeing women being brutalised on the screen. Fine. I'm exhausted by seeing anyone brutalised on the screen. It's far too much violence in my opinion. And then she made this statement: there's something oddly empowering about women being violent, she said. Really? I'm sorry, but it just isn't. Violence is or should only be required to defend yourself, not to go about punching people to show how much of a feminist or male oriented you are. These people are such poor role models that these programmed agents set. Empowering women being violent. Sorry, it's just not. Something mentions there was a piece, the difference between the two languages of English and American English, and one of the words came up was realtor instead of estate agent. Neither are good for that matter. But then you look at the words. Real, having objective, independent existence. Tor, on one hand, it's an internet communication method for enabling online anonymity, of which there is none. All encrypting was done by Langley. You don't think they would put back doors in, do you? They did. And then this thing popped out. Tor, Third Order Regular, a designation of the Third Order of St. Francis, Catholic Church. A papal decree of 1447 organised the more isolated communities into a new and separate religious order with its own rule of life. From that point, members were defined as either Third Order Regular, living under regular or rule, or as the Third Order Secular, And for those members of the order who lived in the world, that's where it started. Real talk. In the later centuries of the Franciscan movement, the order of regular tertiaries was considered as equivalent to the friars of the First Order. In other words, an expansion. Tertiaries, from the Latin tertiarius, means relative to the third. In other words, third party. Do you understand real talk now? They're the third party. Or what is known as the third orders, are those persons who live accordingly to the third rule of religious orders, either in a religious community or outside of a monastery in the world. Now, the idea which forms the basis of this institute is in general that persons who, on account of certain circumstances, cannot enter the religious order, strictly so called, may, nevertheless, as far as possible, enjoy the advantages and privileges of the religious order. In other words, it's a bit like politicians. They make laws, but laws don't apply to them. They're always outside of the system, you see. The hidden third party, the Tor. As to the place where the third order was first introduced, nothing certain is known. No surprise there, except there was. And the opinion is for Florence, Italy, chiefly on the authority of Mariano of Florence or Firenze, who cites the first papal bull known on the subject and suggests the date was 1221. This is how far this goes back. Was the earliest date for the founding of this particular third order. Why is that date significant? Well, it was initiated by Pope Innocent III. Third order. This is the same Pope who administered the Magna Carta, which, contrary to some, was an attempt at transferring the power of the kings over to the bloodline families, of which we will cover in From Russia with Love 3. In other words, that was a faction war. A bit like Kennedy and Bush. Kennedy was taken on the Bushes and lost his life. It wasn't for the people, it was a faction war. Now, estates, as they were called, were being stolen from the people and also from the barons at the time, and barons are titles of nobility and so are not the common people. Land grab back in the 1200s. And this was first drafted by the Archbishop of Canterbury to make peace between the unpopular king. There's nothing technically wrong with the king, they just wanted to replace it with somebody else, and a group of rebel barons, in other words, the families. And it promised the protection of church rights, protection for the barons from illegal imprisonment, access to swift justice, and limitations on feudal payments to the crown. So they didn't have to pay. In other words, to be implemented through a council of 25 barons. Neither side stood behind their commitments, and the charter was annulled by Pope Innocent III again, leading to a war. No surprise there. And research by Victorian historians showed that the original 1215 charter, the Magna Carta, had concerned the medieval relationship between the monarch and the barons, nothing to do with the people, and rather than the rights of the ordinary people. No, it was to elevate the families. Magna means great. Carta means charter. Charter means contract, franchise, special privilege, immunity or exemption. Getting the picture now? It also means to certify. Now, franchising is based on a marketing concept which, as you can see, has been going on a long time, just escalated over the last 100 years or so, which can be adopted by an organisation as a strategy for business expansion. It's the third partner again. You have the funder, the business and the seller. And where implemented, a franchisor licenses its know-how, its procedures, its intellectual property, its use of the business model, brand and rights to sell its branded products and services to a franchisee. In return, the franchisee pays certain fees for the privilege of it and agrees to comply with certain obligations typically set out in a franchise agreement. Now, the word franchise is of Anglo-French derivation from the word franc, which means free. In other words, it's free to the franchise owner, and he puts out rubbish and the sellers use the program and then pay fees back. Nevertheless, the rudiments of modern franchising dates back to the Middle Ages, when landowners made franchise-like agreements with tax collectors who retained a percentage of the money they collected and turned the rest over. It's like the modern day debt collectors, isn't it? Again, third party. Now, three important payments are made to a franchisor. A royalty for the trademark. B, reimbursement for the training and advisory services that are given to the franchisee, whether the franchisee wants them or not. And C, a percentage of an individual's business unit sales. Now, franchise fees are on average 6.7%, with an additional average in marketing fee of 2%. And all of that is going back to the hidden third order. Now, Magna also means this is French, who ran Britain back in the 1200s. King John, who signed over the Magna Carta to the families, not to the people, was the third of the Angevin kings, a royal house of French origin. Magna is French, is the third person singular past historic of Magna. Third person again. These are the same people who brought about the Third Crusade. Richard the Lionheart. Lion is a reference to Egypt. Again, you'll find out these details in From Russia with Love 3. Venerated. Richard the Lionheart. Venerated in the UK, where he was actually born and raised in the UK, or England, but only spent as much as 6 months there ever. And the other one was the Plantagenets, French. The estate definition is kind of broad, but here are a few that may lead to a conclusion. Landed property, from the Latin word status, meaning social position of the aristocracy. So estates were not for the average person. It's for the third person. In other words, the elites. And estates also mean the collective assets of a dead person. Oh my. But all dead after 7 years, remember? Who instigated that? the same people. Rome, chattel, or the debtor. So realtor definition is your estate has been taken over by a third party entity. Whilst we're on subject of words meaning different things, slave. First used as the Slavs, right, Aryans, were conquered and sold into slavery. That's where it comes from. The Welsh name for Wales means not free, servile. The Slavic word for slaves in Russian is rab. Serb-Croatian is rob. The Old Slavonic is rabu and orbu, which is the root word for orphan. So orphans are slaves. And the Slavonic word is also the source of the word robot. Robotic slaves. Rabbi means rab master. In other words, slave master. Oh my. Given the outing of Mr. Mnuchin, perhaps this piece will make you sit up and take notice of how they put it in your face. Pedo means boy child. Pedestry means a man sodomizing a boy and is mentioned as being okay in the Talmud. Pedophile is someone who sexually engages with children. And then we arrive at a term that's right in our face for those who look anyway, and for those who look after children. Pediatrician. I can hear the collective gulps now, and oh my God, it's in your face. These people take the piss. Next item is related to the piece of Trump putting that budget out. And it may well be a distraction piece. Time will tell. Not so much time. I think it'll be fairly soon we'll find out. But quite where he thinks a budget that is near 4 times the normal rate is coming from is beyond me. It talks about cutting aid to countries. Except we all know by now that one country in particular won't be cut off from aid, will it? Egypt Mark II, now known as Israel. Military spending increase. Oh dear. The giant elephant in the room. We've still not located the 2.3 trillion Mr. Rumsfeld mentioned that has been conveniently forgotten following the incident the day after 9/11, or the later figure of the 9.5 trillion missing, which is about 7 years American GDP, I might add. Now, I wouldn't mind if the military defended or looked after the country or its people. Or even if they actually looked after the soul dyers, and I said that correctly, because that's the correct term, soul dyer. Again, right in your face, again, too easily missed. Under their command. They don't. Not one iota. Look at the veterans strewn across the country, lying on streets and under bridges, with all kinds of illness, disease, mental problems, PTSD, just neglected. Generals sitting there with pallets of stolen dinars from Iraq, all waiting for their RV payout, and leaving the country hanging by a thread politically, geopolitically and financially. You see, to them, life's all about the Rothschilds, the dragon groups, the private contractors, and looting every other country to keep the same three groups running the world at our expense. Go and check out Halliburton. Talking about private contractors, Tricky Dickie's group, and in particular Bechtel, and the amount of contracts they've got between them, they'll be staggered. And here's how it all works. You create a war. You then print out bonds. All bonds are war bonds. You leverage the said bonds to print out more money. You bomb the said country, rebuild it using Halliburton or Bechtel, all using the people's money. And then when the bonds, which are IOUs, are payable, pass the debt on to the people, whilst they keep all the spoils of war like pallets of dinars, dongs or zims. That's how it works. And it's time we wake up to the inherent dangers and damage, the elephant in the room known as the US military, which is not America. The United States is not America. It never was. It is a European conglomerate that was created in Vienna, Austria, 1820. Cuts in Medicaid, Social Security and other welfare programmes that were announced today. More austerity for the people, whilst the system of control not only keeps its budget but increases it. Military spending went up by 34 million, right the first time. Ignoring the fact that the $22 trillion debt was paid off. Seems the government is now ignoring that fact also. But these measures of austerity for the people is not what was promised in the campaign, was it? 3 simple solutions will turn this country around financially and put us all on a better footing. 1. Remove all US military bases globally. They're not there for our benefit. 2. Delete several of the so-called agencies. Why do we need NSA or DHS or CIA? Take your pick. Which 2 need removing, or all 3, given they're all spying on the people. And 3, end the Fed, which it already has been done, which then ends the IRS. Was there a collection agency for the Fed? If there's no Fed, there's no need for an IRS. And then collect American people taxes that will go to this country, not some foreign siphoning system. It changes everything. Meanwhile, jobs and businesses in particular are siving fast. The amount of bankruptcies is going through the roof. And we're not talking about lower level now. We're talking big ones. Amazon's cutting back. They're all cutting back. Despite what the portal people and the government propaganda are telling you, a few quick searches yourself will show you that businesses are collapsing. So if you cut welfare, which in and of itself is fine, because the Western world has become far too dependent on the state. The people don't need dependency, they need growth. And the only way we will have growth in the economy is if new money is brought in, because the old money has gone. And the only people who can do that is the trust and the trustee. So if you're cutting back on dependency, you have to replace it with something else to get people off dependency, do you not? Except the businesses are collapsing. So with nothing to replace it with, you actually need to increase dependency, not less. Basic policy. These are dangerous times. What happens with people who have no support? Chaos is what? That proposal, if it goes through, is going to generate chaos and mass unrest. Now, we can all blame Trump, but let's put it into perspective. He has 26 levels of national security below the top end of the deep state. He's circled by Rothschildian generals and others with badges of dishonour on their shoulders, snakes like Mnuchin in the Treasury. Langley is split into 3 sections, all fighting for different factions, and a vice president who's done deals with Pelosi to make him the president in place of Trump. Threats from the likes of Erik Prince and private mercenary contractors, dragon groups, fake Chinese elders, and if all that wasn't enough, we have the Egyptian Israelite group who appear to have Trump in their back pocket. A son-in-law who works with Mossad, a daughter who switched their religion to Judaism, and the fact that he was bailed out of bankruptcy at least 3 times by, guess who? The Rothschilds. And that's ignoring what dirt Trump has got up to before the presidency and the cover up of that. What you're left with is not a pretty picture, but it can be changed by we the people. By 2020, November 2020, unless things change, which they can very quickly, I might add, I would like to see the people turn against all politicians and politics and demand a real change. Because the answer's not putting the Democrats back in. Remember Obama for 8 years, going to change everything. What did he change? Quite a lot, really. For the worse. As well as selling out the people of his own colour. We the people can change the landscape with just a little bit of effort. You don't like Wall Street? Pull your money out. Don't like certain or all banks? Pull our money out. Don't like corporate shopping conglomerates like Amazon? Don't buy their goods. Don't like it certain oil companies? Don't buy their gas. By cutting off their money supply, pay down your mortgages, pay down your credit cards. Remember, they rely on our interest payments. No interest payments, no funds to play games with us. When you go shopping, ask yourself, do I really need this item? Be a bit mean with yourself. And instead use that money saved to pay off interest. Because when you pay off interest, you will have so much more financial freedom in and of yourself. Go and analyse how much interest payments you're making on mortgages and credit cards and loans per month. There's whole families living on less than what you're paying on interest. Stop competing with each other. no keeping up with the Joneses will end most of their financial stranglehold on us. So instead of getting a tax refund and buying a new car, pay down your interest-bearing accounts. That is being the change. Look what happened to Monsanto or the vaccine industry. We, the people, have hammered them into oblivion almost, where the system now decides they're going to ban people off platforms promoting anti-vaccine. Yes, you, Facebook. That is, we, the people, exercising our imprint on them, not the other way round. So if the alt media can come together on them, why not the rest of the system? Celebrate what you have, not what society tells you that you need. It's all a trap. As mentioned last week, we in the Western world are still, by and large, amongst the world's top 15%. A sobering statistic in and of itself. It is us in the westernized world that feeds the beast. And it's time we got our thinking caps on how we the people starve the beast. No more of our money going to feed the military industrial complex in this country or others. They don't protect us. They protect the system. But if the system has nothing left, they have nothing to protect. End the thought programming that joining the military is somehow an object of pride. It's not. It's a lesson in stupidity, where you risk yours and your children's lives to feed lard-arsed CEOs and generals who are consumed by greed, ego and sacrifice. And for what? Your freedoms? What a load of bollocks that is. People are only free when they are in control of their own lives. No matter what the American agency-based think tanks tell us. We in America were never free. It's a total illusion. Home of the brave? That's yet to be decided. Currently the jury's out. All these actions to some might just seem small, but like Monsanto and the vaccine exposure, it has a ripple effect. For another example, the Yellow Vest movement. Look how quickly it spread. And yes, we know there's rogue elements in there playing games. It just takes each of us to look at our own life and lifestyles, where we put our money and where we spend it. At the moment, that choice currently is ours. Use it. We have to focus on where we are going. And yes, it might just seem, oh, it's only me, if I pull my money back, that's not going to make much difference. It does. It has a ripple effect. Who'd have thought 32 countries would ban Monsanto? Who did that? We did. So many people around the world now, particularly in the Western countries, saying that they don't want vaccines. We did that. Just your voice, which became somebody else's voice, which became somebody else's voice, and on it went. So much so that they're trying to ban people now who are anti-vaccine. It won't work. It will increase it, because that's the way it works. So it's not just one person doing it. It's about encouraging us all to do it. Look at where you're spending your money. It is your money, remember. No, the banks seem to think the minute you put it in there, it belongs to them. And you have to pay to get it out. Really. Look at what you're spending on. How can you get your interest down? Switch cards. You'll pay a one-off interest fee for switching one to another, where you get interest for no interest payments for 12 or 18 months. Take a bit off, put it on another card. Works out about $30 per $1,000. But then you're not paying any interest for the next 12 or 18 months. Cut it out. They're relying heavily now on our interest payments. It's all they've got left. Because there is no new money. There's plenty of new money, but they're not ready to accept it yet, including the government. But eventually they'll have no option. I'll be back probably, maybe Tuesday, for a show that I'm really looking forward to putting out, from Russia with Love 3. You will enjoy it. It will blow your mind. It's a plethora of some bits that I've covered in op-ed pieces, and a vast amount of research and new knowledge, where it all ties it all together, which will then set the stage for part 4, which brings it up to the modern day. So I'll see what we can do for that. I look forward to speaking to the people down under on Saturday on the Zoom call. I'll put a link up for that, for those people tomorrow, and I'll be back next Thursday. I hope you've enjoyed the show. My name's Thomas Williams. Bye for now.